heads up. And look at that. And as I go to record, the other moderator has it recording. Good job. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Right now I have my introduction slide up there, and just sort of being very meta, since I'm talking to people who do a lot of presentations and use and arguably some of you use Collaborate for that session. What I was just telling Jamie is what I try to do for things, especially if they're it's not the same group all the time. If it's a class that I have every Tuesday that's online at 10 o'clock, I don't do a whole lot, but I generally will have a visual up that means they're in the right place, and some kind of music so they can sort of test their sound. They hear things on their side, they'll know. So I'll just point that out in general. So I generally will, within Collaborate, I'll put a slide up, and I will have it being whatever it is. Now so I'm going to take that slide down, but what I want to start with here is basically what I want to start with is basically a couple of things about Collaborate, just so you knows, but I'm going to go ahead and share my camera real fast. And that way you guys will be seeing me. However, when I start sharing my screen, as you may know, in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little thumbnail of me, and then you'll have what I'm presenting. Because the way I do this is a little different, I'm going to ask you to try to sort of switch back and forth. I've done this before, and people have missed that, and they're like, what are you talking about? We're not seeing what you're describing. So you have two visuals, and now a lot of these streaming services have that kind of a thing, right? But for Collaborate, I shut off the grid when I'm going to just do a one-way presentation, and it's not a discussions forum. But now Collaborate has a grid, and it can have, they say, up to 25 people if you were playing with it previously, but you haven't this semester. It's a little different. Anyway, so be conscious of that. I'm going to be switching back and forth a little bit. But what I'm doing here, I'm in a room that we're creating basically to serve faculty. So faculty, if they wanted to do a Camtasia recording or this kind of thing, really, basically you could use this room. So we have like real lighting and stuff in here, and a little black backdrop, or you could put other stuff back there if you wanted. All those are options that one has. And then I've got a large screen in front, and we've worked with a few people in here, and it's sort of worked out pretty nicely. And I think you'll agree that it's got a sort of a different kind of a look. And the other thing I do is I use the downstream key, which is this stuff to my right, your left. And that is that my PowerPoint, I like having some of that come up and can do reinforcing stuff while my face is on the screen. And then when I'm going to share an entire screen, I'll tell you that. And then I'll ask you to make sure that you're on that interface when the time comes. Right now, I'm not sharing a screen, so you just have me and me to choose from there. Anyways, let's see who's here. I'm pulling up folks. And what I'd like to do, Crystal, Grace, Michelle, and Jamie and Sarah are part of the teaching and learning team, but they're presumably still going to be interacting either as presenters or participants or whatever they'd like to be. So if anybody has questions, you can raise your hand, but sometimes it's hard to track that out of the corner of my eye. But I will point out within Collaborate, they do have a hand raise thing, but you also, if you go down to the very center, there's where your icon is, an icon of your picture or your initials. If you click that, you'll also see that we can put up happy and sad faces, or we can hit agree and disagree. Now, the nice thing about that versus the hand raising is if everyone is getting that, and I say, give me a smiley face, that'll pop up on the screen when I have people up here, but it only lasts for a minute. So that's sort of handy. When I teach with this, I will always, every 5-10 minutes, I'll ask a question, I'll ask them to respond. Anyone who doesn't respond, I kick them out of class. Just like somebody putting their head down on the desk. It's no offense, but if your head's on the desk, I'll say, come when you feel a little better. And if they're not responding when I ask for something, and I didn't use the away symbol, then it means that, they're not plugged in, and I will have them need to log back in, and then that helps me track people who are paying attention. In professional development, I don't do that at all, obviously. I'm glad you're here, and if you're grading papers or doing it through other things like faculty do, I totally get that. So if you don't feel like entering in, that's fine. But since it is a small group, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and if you don't mind telling me, 1 second here, I got to change that setting on this side so I'm seeing the right folks. If you don't mind telling me, go ahead and turn on your mic for a second here, and then just tell me what you're thinking about. Crystal, would you mind just sharing for a second of what are you thinking about using some H5P, or were you just curious?
Can you hear me first?
I certainly can.
I have
Thank
more than
you.
one microphone, so I have to make sure I have the right one on.
I hear you.
I am very interested in using it. I've never used it before. I've seen it, and I've seen it demonstrated, but I'm very interested in using it in my classes.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Crystal. And let's see here. Grace?
Oops, here we go. There we are.
I'm hearing you.
Hey, yes,
hey.
I am somewhat familiar with it, not probably as familiar as maybe Crystal is, but it is something that I know enough about to know that I'm kind of interested in exploring what the options are, but I'm probably starting out with less knowledge than more.
Okay, thanks for that, Grace. I appreciate it. And then Michelle?
Thanks. I have a couple interests. I have an interest in making a certain amount of students who don't watch my videos in my lesson. They just click through my lesson really quickly and don't watch a video. So that's one goal. Try to implement a tool that's going to help them actually watch the instructional video in the online class. But I have a dream, kind of a reach goal, to learn how to use H5P to do a lesson, a bit like an infolit lesson, using the branching scenarios. To me, that's really exciting, kind of like a choose your own adventure book. So there's so much in there that is exciting to learn about. But I've never played with it myself, so I'm like everybody else, just starting out.
Excellent, excellent. I sure appreciate that. Just for the record, I hope to demonstrate a little of that for each person, and so we'll be going over that. And basically the video verification, I think, is really meaningful. Ben Kish had designed had generated about 100 and some short pieces with local entrepreneurs and executives. Just a terrific set for his leadership class. And these were really strong because it was short questions. What do you think about leadership? What do you think about succession? And it was local people who had spent some time, and these are edited together. And so we were thinking these were just great. His class was saying they were nice. And we looked at the analytics, and his class wasn't actually watching them. So unless you have a verification step, I would qualify an efficiency for students to not actually watch stuff. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, since we're such a small group, do me a favor. If anything, if I'm saying anything, just, there's 5 of us sitting at a table here. So if there's anything I say that is lost on you, or something I say that you have some question, or something is unclear, even if you think I may be getting to it later, please just turn on your mic and say, hey, Kev, okay? Because the chat thing, I find it really difficult to watch that. The cool thing is when I'm in a class setting, I'll generally ask someone to be the chat watcher, and if there's somebody live. And even if there's not somebody live, they can still interrupt me a little easier than somebody else can. And I've got Sarah and Jamie here, so if you put something in chat, I'm sure they will. They'll interrupt me if you choose not to, because I want to make this more of a discussion. But that said, I am recording it, so part of this I will be talking to the missing third person, just FYI. So here's the plan today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through this, and I'm going to describe what H5P is, and I'm going to introduce you to basically how to get into the tool to start work, because it's really it's a different kind of a deal. And then I'm going to show some demonstration of some of these after I've walked through basically some of the tools and how to get into them. And then after we've done that and we've seen that, I will show you a little bit of how to actually build and create these, although that's going to be more time consuming. On top of that, at the end, I will mention, and I'll also show you where it is, that I've built a bunch of tutorials on H5P. Most of them were around the video unit. I just posted a 20-minute drop and drag one today that's also an introduction to H5P, just working with the thing. So I'm going to, like I said, that's sort of the plan of attack here. If I don't get through all of it and you guys want to go a different direction, I'm down with that. We'll just sort of get started at that point. And like I said, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to speak basically to the camera, and I'm showing that as well. So you'll see my PowerPoint slide adjacent. And then when I get to demonstrating, I'll point out that I've got the other screen up, and you can switch back and forth, as you probably know. So H5P is defined by themselves as H5P is an abbreviation for HTML5 package. So H5 package, I get it. HTML5 package. And HTML5 is like an advanced HTML, obviously, and it has a whole lot of interactive stuff built into the actual code. And the people who are working with this are manipulating that to really benefit a lot of LMSs, but it also works online if you have a website. So it's a little different thing, but it makes it easy for everyone to create, share, and reuse interactive HTML5 content without actually having to learn HTML. And Dan Bricklin, the guy who came up with that, he said he imagined that no one would ever learn the code. Everyone would be using the machines that write it. It's amazing to me how many people actually still learn HTML. I am not one. Okay, so it's essentially a small standalone HTML container that is created within a simple interface that works inside my courses and online. So it's a container. What I'm saying is this stuff is basically goes into the LMS, but it's a little container. So we go back and we say, I create this little piece of code in a tool that helps me write HTML code, and then I put it within the LMS. It'll play in a browser. It'll play within the HTML5 tools outside of the LMS as well. So be advised that that's why it's weird. It's not like you can do something in create a quiz and then have the whole quiz downloaded. You can get the questions out of a question bank, but the quiz itself is stuck in the LMS. Not so HTML5, although for us, unless one of you is a web designer, there's not going to be much more that you're going to do. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with this 1-minute demo, and I'm going to show me operating the HTML5. So you'll see me playing a video of me to me, and I'm operating it because it's embedded in HTML5. With that said, if there's questions, now's a great time, and I'm going to go to share that content. Oh, and if I forget to change the content, or I mute myself, and please somebody tell me. This is what I do with classes as well. I just want to give them permission to say, hey, Qualvik, you dope, you're muted. But classes are so courteous, they let me talk for 15 minutes without. So please don't let me embarrass myself. Okay, so I'll shut this off, and then I'm going to share an application screen, and that is going to be this guy over here. And I'm sharing my system audio as well. If you're using Collaborate, you always have to share system audio if you know you're sharing videos with audio. And then, so in about 3 seconds, it'll pop up on my screen and yours, and we all know that it's going. And then there we go. Now it's the way I've got a Mongo screen over here, so this is tiny. So the H5P has within it the full screen piece. So I'm going to click that. And then I've moved this over. It knew I had taken the quiz already. It wasn't letting me take it twice. So I haven't gone through and seen this, but I'm going to click the play button in the lower left-hand corner. What we're seeing is the HTML5 container.
Okay, a couple things about the H5P. I thought I would show it since it is a video-based program. First of all, you can pause.
Okay, now this is the tool actually pausing itself right there. Okay, so I'm going to reach up, and now you could do this with a class, obviously, where you could have it paused and ask for a question, and then they have to continue it. So I'm going to have to click twice and make it go again.
And then after you pause, you can do different things. So let's say you want to put up a label. So you put up a label basically saying, hey, here's whatever you want them to know. You can have it there as long as you like. You can have it disappear whenever you like. The second thing it does is there's quite a few types of assessment. Now, while there are like 5 or 6 of these, I will point out that they're very similar in terms of the operations, so one doesn't have to go through them specifically.
So now I have paused it, and I put up a choice, and And that's really nice. So this is your verification step. So these pop up, and then when they use this, if it's working correctly, we'll talk about this later, it will inform the grade book if you've assigned points to this interaction. So I'm just making sure that I was listening to what Kevin was saying. And what did he say? Well, I think this is probably the right one. And look, I got it. So that's nice. And now I'm going to hit continue and it'll start the video up. I could have several questions in a row though.
Another thing that one can do though is send them different.
Okay, now this is a little busy because I'm trying to get a lot in just my opening demo here. Now, if I wanted my class to be able to see another piece that maybe explains this section of the thing longer, if I click this right now, and I'm not going to do it because it's confusing enough, this will open a new tab with Sir Ken Robinson's discussion at a given point. So that means any student who needs maybe immediate remediation, this could take them to that, but it doesn't close the interface with H5P or the LMS. It opens it in a new tab, they see it, they close it, and we're back here to this. I also, and I saw Crossroads, this is a Crossroads tool in the deal. I can go back 5 seconds, I can go back 10 seconds, I can continue forward. That's important, and I'm just going to take a moment, this is important too, is I can set this up so there's no fast forwarding allowed. The scrubber ceases working. So this goes to what you were saying, that it would be nice to make sure they saw the whole thing. Well, if you've got questions, simple little verification questions at like 5-minute intervals, if it's not horrifically, I mean it's really long. Not you, I just saying it's horrific for you. I was just saying that some teachers put up a 2-hour video. Anyway, so they can ask the question. They can also go back 10 seconds and hear the answer again. But this interaction tells you that they're watching. I'm not going to hit the 5 seconds earlier, 10 seconds earlier. You can trust me, it works.
Directions or call for data.
Okay. Now calling for data. Here I can click this and it'll open up the Constitution in a new window. And if I click this one, it will download that PDF of the Constitution to my desk. So this will be triggered all through H5P, and it will work through the LMS. So you have these toys as well.
From somewhere else during the video. So I'll show you both of those things as well. And with that said, let's get to right now taking a look at the interactives. The interactives are these guys that are going to live right up there. And
I'll pause this because we're going to get to this later, but what I'm showing you here, these are all the choices you have when you're in the video editing section of H5P. And if you are interested at the end of the session, I can pull that up and we can look at those. But I'm just going to go ahead and let Kevin stop talking now. And what I'm going to do is walk through the PowerPoint for a moment, which is on the screen. So I'm going to leave this live as I would with a class. And then I'm going to address you through the camera and with my PowerPoint in the background. And then when I go back to these, I will basically let you know. But anyways, I hope you found that as interesting as I do for the video version of what H5P can do. So real quickly, and I'm not going to add this as to the notes for a test in the future, you can have a video that you manipulate and you can make sure that students have to watch it through that as you indicated. You can also put in just basically some images that have to be like organized in a certain way. Well, that's sort of easy, but you can also just use text and have text where you have to drop and drag the text. You can have text where you fill in the blank. You can have text where you drag the words into where it goes to in the paragraph. There's all these variations. There are 48 variations, and I'll show you 3 or 4 of them today. And when you read through this, and I'll show you as we go forward, it becomes pretty clear that about 2/3 of those aren't going to be working for higher ed. But this is designed for online. It's designed for K-12. So we'll just pick a few, and my favorites are the ones that we're looking at today. Okay, but I've restate how to get around in this on the screen just as best practice for students more than you guys, so everyone knows that. And I'm just going to take a second and ask anybody if they want to, they have anything they would like to ask about specific before we start walking into this. Okay, great. First, please go right ahead.
Hey, I just want to say this is so cool. I'm totally geeking out on all the different tools that we can use here. So I'm really excited to see what's coming next. But this is awesome.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. That's so great. Crystal, I just appreciate that. You know how that is. We all have these students who say something like that. We're in the middle of a lecture and you think people are drifting off. It's like, thank you. Okay.
And I will
real fast.
expect that $20 to be mailed to me by the end of the day. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, it'd be well worth it. Okay, so what I've got here is a couple of just a disclaimer that within H5P, it has some grade settings that are not intuitive. You can go through them, you can find them. Once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty straightforward. But the tutorial I created walks through every one of them. And it's a 20-minute tutorial all total. And then there's also, when you're using this little standalone piece of code, you're going to embed it in like a page or an assignment or in the blue H5P player. But once you create it, it's still just a little piece of code. It's not part of your LMS yet. So I want to be really clear. And the settings are both in the LMS, where all our settings are for assignments and pages and quizzes. It's all on that right-hand side. But we have to have already done it correctly when we created the H5P. That's the disclaimer. And if you can test it and make sure that it is informing the gradebook is supposed to. But sometimes the LMS will have changed, or they will have changed something with HTML5 and something breaks. So it's not unwise to test that. Okay, that's the disclaimer. And then but I still think, even with that said, it's worth the trouble. And for the gradebook, for the video verification, sometimes if it's not working and the students don't know it's not working, it's still a win. Okay, so there's 3 ways, 3 tools, 3 interactions that we can use to make this. 2 of them are
Kevin, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. Is everybody back on Kevin? Can everybody see Kevin talking to us? Want to make sure that everybody's with Kevin because he's got some good visuals. Okay.
Thanks so much, Sarah. I appreciate that. And just everybody, I've asked, Sarah, my colleague and just terrific advocate for faculty, to hop in anytime she has anything to share, because it's always good. So the first one, and I'll show you these in a second, but the first one is the one that we've had for some years in the LMS. And when you go to resources, you'll see this. It's an older standalone interface, and it can edit a single instance. And when you open it up in this version, it immediately shows you the edit. And you don't have to go somewhere else to edit it. It's basically a little editor, and it wants to save it right there. And that's its default modality, just so you know. Okay. And then the second one is this one that came out just last year, which is a content bank based interface. In other words, it wants to pull it from it being stored somewhere else. And I'm going to show you the content bank. But this is a little different because you still have the same little piece of code that I told you about that you wrote, but now it's stored in a unique place in the LMS in your course only. It doesn't live elsewhere unless you download it and keep them somewhere, which you can do, and I advise. Okay, so this is a little different, but I'm going to show you this one, and I'm going to show you how to get into all 3 of them. And then the last one, and this is sort of a cheat, because if you find that this is sort of fun for you and you just want to get to the editing, you don't want to go through the LMS to start, and I'm going to show you how to do that. If you download this free little gadget that writes the HTML5 package, only it's a standalone, you can download Lumi, and I'll show you that in the tutorial that I created, as well as this today. And let's just talk another minute about this. So here's what you do to add an activity or resource, as you I assume you know in the LMS. If you don't know that, no problem. We can help you with that as well. But of course, you go down to the bottom of the page and you hit add activity or resource. And then after that, it takes you to all the activities. And the activities have the blue and the black version. And like I say, it's redundant, and I'm sure that the LMS is going to make it just one of them again, but it's sort of like forums. They give you 2 and you really don't need to. Okay, so we're going to choose one of those. When you choose the black one, it'll immediately open the black. When you choose the blue one, it will take you instead.
Hey, Kevin, can you make I still see the old video on my screen. Can you make it so we can see you and your PowerPoint big?
Oh, good question. Yeah, go to the little right-hand corner and click that little thumbnail down there in the lower right corner. And that should swap the screens out. Let me know. Let me know if that's working for you. But great question.
Yes, thank you.
You bet. Yeah, no, that's important, because when you're teaching like the first time with Collaborate, and your students, about half of them got it because you weren't clear. And so I really appreciate your mentioning that. So yeah, so what you'll do to get to the content bank is, now the LMS, everyone has this in your main page. At the very bottom, it says content bank. You click that little puppy, and what it's going to do is going to take you to where you've stored all of these little, this little collection of HTML. Now, what you can do in the content bank itself is you can go up to the content bank and hit add. When you hit add, you're going to get that little drop down that you can see there, and the drop down is going to have all the kinds of H5Ps you can create. Now, the problem with this is it's not abundantly clear what they are. When the black with the black H5P, you can see them better and stuff, but we're not going to go into that. Trust me, though. This is just one way to get there, is what I'm trying to say, because there's several. And if you're trying to edit something that you already put in the content bank, you also go here to click that element, and then you'll edit it. Okay, so I'm going to show you right now the content bank as it looks on my screen over here on the screen that I'm sharing. So if you guys can go back to that screen, I'm going to show you how that works on this side. What I'm going to do is
I'm saying click the little thing in the corner again.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah. So now what you'll be seeing is we've swapped from my face and my PowerPoint to the screen I'm sharing. And then what I'm going to do is the same steps I just showed you. I'm going to come over here to add activity or resource, and then I could walk into it like that. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the content bank. I've already put stuff in this, but I go down here to content bank, and now what it's going to show me is going to show me all of these every single time. And so here's all the ones I have. Now I can add, as I just showed you. This puts me in the create mode. I can upload the stuff that I've already made. So if you've made it in Lumi, or you made it maybe in the black version of the H5P, and you can download those like any file into your computer. In today's course, I'll show you where I've got some of those that you can see on your own. But all of these, if I click into these, then I will basically be able to see them and edit them. So if I wanted to I know something's up with my rib cage thing. I'm just going to show you what that looks like when I click into it from the content bank. And it'll take a moment. Anyways, well, this is going to load, but it's loading the H5P right now from the content bank, and here it is. So this is, I can use it. I can move it here just like as if I was, a student, and it works the same exact way. It'll check and everything. Or I can go to the edit mode. This is important because ultimately, when you make this stuff, being able to get back in and edit it is crucial. And the edit view is a lot different, and that's what we're sort of getting towards. And I'm gonna walk back through that in a moment after we talk about the content bank. Okay, so my edit view, this is common, and we're going to spend some time this day, so I don't think that you need to be following this right now. But if I go to settings to task, there's usually 2 steps in creating these. And this, I'll first have to go through the settings, but I have to come down here and go through all of this as well, and which we'll get to later. And then after I've done that, and after I've gone down here and set up all the behavioral settings for how this is going to interact with the LMS, then I can move forward to task, and it will basically let me, do the next thing that I have to do. So that's what the content bank is good for. Basically letting you into the individual pieces for editing. You can save them there, you can access them there, and then I'm going to show you right now how to upload something into them. Say you created something and you saved it. This is just important to know. What I'm going to do is I can put it into, as I did earlier, I'm going to hit activity or resource. I'm going to choose the blue H5P because I made this earlier and it's already in my content bank and I want to bring it up. So I'm going to click that. And now this will be familiar if you've uploaded stuff. Because when we try to upload stuff, it gives us like these sort of hard to sort out concepts of, you know, what you want. So I know what I'm going to put in here is skeleton bones, what I'm going to call it. Okay. And then I don't have to put in a description because that's not going to help me at all. But look what I do over here. Within the blue, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mouse over that. And this is also in that tutorial that you have access to. I'm going to hit add. And look at this. Server files, we've seen this before if we've done any uploading. Recent files, I can upload a new one, which I could do right now. Or I go to the content bank, which is new. This is down here. Now look at that. Here it is. There's my little skeleton H5P. And I say select this file. And there it is. Now, next thing, and once again, this is just the first run through. But like I said, not only are those settings at the bottom when I created that piece, but now that I'm putting it in the LMS, I've got to tell it some stuff. I'm not going to go through these in detail because they're in the tutorial in detail. But I will say that I want to make sure that the grade that's here reflects what it's worth. This is determined by the LMS, as it usually is. And this isn't like 100%. This is points. So if it's low, if it's you know, low stakes, make it worth 5 points. Make it worth 10 points. If it's really important, then make it 100. But the student should see. This is just best practice. Students, if they know how many points it's worth, that should indicate something to them of how important it is. And don't just rely on weighting stuff in the gradebook because, well, you can, of course, if that's your way, but I would just encourage people to not do that. And then look, right here, I can put it into a category. So maybe I have a category for H5P or interactives or whatnot. I would choose that here, same as I would. Now, for this one, there's an activity completion. For sometimes when I load an H5P in here, the activity completion won't be one of my options. Just be conscious of that. It doesn't operate the same all the time, okay? So that's just the quick basics of how Content Bank works. So you can create in the Content Bank, you can save, you can access things, and you can upload things in that way. But like I said, if that was lost on you, that little quick demo, in my experience, it's 3 things. When you have a tech demo, the first one, your response is, huh? And your second is what? Because you're starting to get it. And then the third one is okay. Okay, I get it. So for most adults I work with, there's 3 steps. So this is the first step. If you're teaching people who are 12 and 13, they already know it and they're laughing at you for talking so slowly. Okay. So let me show you now here. I'm going to move ahead. Now you don't have to go to it, but I'm moving ahead in the PowerPoint on the right-hand side, on my right-hand side. But you don't have to go there because I'm just going to show you more stuff here. The first thing I've already shown you is that vid demo. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you where we're going. I'm in the LMS resource guide. Okay, the LMS resource guide has, as you are, if you aren't familiar with it, please tell me because I definitely want you to be familiar with it. The LMS resource guide has a section on H5P. Okay, and that's right here, H5P overview and demos. This is the new one. It's a drop-down 20-minute video. These are about video and using H5P with video, so all of those are there. Okay. Next, though, I'm going to go to the end of this, and today's session is right here. If you want to go there, you're certainly welcome to. You're welcome to go ahead and do these while I'm talking. Once again, as professionals, you know how you learn best. But the first thing I'm going to pull up here, because I've got 6 H5Ps that I want to just show you one after the other as a demonstration. And then at the end of it, if there's time, I don't mind starting in on actually creating one from scratch if you guys feel there's value. But it's up to the three guests if that's the case. Okay. And then I also have, now this is, you all have access to this. This is the last chapter in the LMS resource guide. I also have files for reference. I have a folder here, and in the folder I have a play space, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is a play space is if you have a drag and drop, which I'm about to show you, and it has a big picture on it, and you have to drag things to different points in that picture. Well, you have to make the picture. And then if there's room for the words that you have to drag in there, well, you have to make a graphic that's big enough, that has a picture, and it has a big enough place to put words. Now, first time through, you don't have to follow that. But in a minute, I'll come to that. But that's this folder here I have at the end of this. It's pretty cool. Now, this is also files for reference. Nice spelling. This folder function, if you're not familiar with it, is terrific for your class. Because if you've got like 5 or 6 things you want to share with the class, but you don't want to take up a lot of space, look what happens. You can open this. They can download all of them at once. They can download them individually. They can click into them. And when you're editing them, you can drag stuff right into it. You don't have to go through that weird 3-step process for uploading. Just the folder is now different if you're not familiar with it. Okay, next thing I'm going to show you is EMR video. And I've already preloaded these so as not to take time. The EMR video is Michael Purdy is doing this lecture-based course on emergency medical response, and it's cool. I'm going to not show you the whole thing, but I'm going to maximize this for a minute. This is now seated in an H5P, same as before, and I've turned on the scrubber, so I can turn this on, and then I can also fast forward. Now, like I said, I loaded this earlier so I wouldn't have it stalling on us. So if it stalls, it's not for lack of trying. But what you'll see here, well, you probably can't see because it's tiny on your side, but what one could see if they were looking at this is I've got 3 dots at the end of this. Those 3 dots basically are where the video is going to stop. Now, like I said, I had this up and running earlier. Let's see if I can make it go. Well,
possible.
Okay,
Know your role within.
So here's the video, and what happens is I put in questions at the end of this. So basically, Crystal, if you didn't allow the scrubber, and the only way they can get to those questions is letting it run, well, that you've done something anyways. Even if they're maybe gonna, change their kid's diaper and ignore the video and come back to the questions, that's still something, right?
Triage process involves. Is it A, quickly determining who is the most injured, B, asking all people who can get up and walk to move to a specific location, C, opening the airway of an unconscious victim, or D, calling dispatch?
Now, he had written those into a PowerPoint. We were looking at his PowerPoint slides. And now what we've done, he's got 3 questions at the end of each one of these. And look at this. The H5P stops it and brings up this. That's his exact questions. He says, first step in the triage process involved which of these? I'm going to say it's calling dispatch. Oh, okay. But still, I can proceed and I can continue. And what this does
is B, asking all people who are able to get up and walk.
What the answer was. But so there's 3 of these at the end of each one of these. I just think it's terrific. And he recorded this in this space that I'm in right now, and I was really pleased because he just did such a terrific job. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at, and I'm doing this, you don't have to go to the PowerPoint, but I'm bringing these up for reinforcement. So is a drop and drag with a video. So with a graphic. Now, this was what I was telling you, and I know I'm going over stuff rapidly, but I said some of the H5P interactions are drop and drag, and you've got to have a place where that occurs. This is called the play space. If you go to the folder I showed you, I have a graphic in there that is another graphic that would be the play space. Now, the way computers work, the ratio is 16:9. The LMS assumes you're working in a 16:9 world. So however you want to do the math, you want to make these pretty big. And I'm not going to go into the details right now, but if I wanted to make this 16:9, so I made it 1600 by 900 pixels, that's big. But the bigger the image is, the easier it is to manipulate when you're working on it. So I created this image, and then I put in where these little landing zones were going to be here, and then I within H5P I put in these other things. So I'm going to say this is abdominal, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to just do a couple of these. This is nasal, and I'm going to say that tarsals and kneecap. Okay, and then and say I do the whole thing. Well, I can check it, and look at that. Ooh, I missed the knee. I guess tarsal, not the kneecap. Oh, patella maybe. Anyways, the point is I can retry that. Now for this class, this is ground zero. So this little silly looking thing, and I say silly because it does look sort of two-dimensional. And if I make it big, it scales really well because it's a huge image. And then the students can do that. I've actually played with this on a phone, and this one, because they're so tiny, it's hard, but the H5P will work with a touch screen as well. So that's the next kind of graphic. So there's that. Now, I'm gonna have enough time to walk through several more, and at the very end, I'll show you if anybody's interested in how to set up the editing. But like I said, that's in the tutorials I have. But let me show you a couple more of these and see if any of these are appropriate to your field of study and to what your students need. Now this one, I didn't have to come up with a play space because it's not me just coming up with a graphic that they have to move stuff around on. This is a kind of tool within H5P, and it's a matter of ordering. Now, if you took biology in high school, that knowing that anaphase, metaphase, telophase, is prophase is crucial, and this is just cool for that kind of simple little thing, right? And it gives you the time and how many moves you took, and I check it, and okay, so I'm really not very good, but this is another simple piece, and it's very easy to make, and it provides all the information you need, and each one of these comes with a tutorial that gives you the basic steps. It doesn't go into great detail, and that's what I got for you. But every one of these will give you do this, do this, do this. And it's important that you go in the exact sequence they say. Let me show you the next thing. Okay, now this, if I had a bunch of these especially, I'm just trying to reinforce that they know this basic thing. Do you know what shrivel and rupture are? And I can check that. Clearly I don't. And then I go to the next. I could retry, but I'm not going to. But now look, I have another one hooked up to it. So now this is a different kind of question in the same sequence. And I'm gonna say it's hypertonic, and I'm gonna check that. And I'm wrong again. I finish. But this now has gone to the grade book when I finish. If there is a finite number of chances you get for it. Now, here's another one. This one is really easy to make. If you see value in this within your field, all one does is you go to the interface for this word drag. You cut and paste all your text in there as text only, and then you put an asterisk on either side of each thing that's going to be a blank, and it will give you all of these that you can then move in and have that populate these areas. So that's another fashion for use another tool that we have in mind. So I've got all of these sort of up there, and then the last one is really the one that may be the most problematic unless you're testing on spelling. Fill in the blanks works just like it does in LMS, where you put in the words. If you mess up the spelling a little bit, maybe it'll allow it, maybe it won't. But fill in the blanks is sort of iffy by nature. But I wanted to give you a demo of those, and once we're done, if you'd like, I can go to any one of those, and I can talk about what the interface looks, how to get there, and how to start making these. I've got several things up here that we can look at. With that said, I know you had mentioned that you were interested in the video and seeing about doing that, because I can show you the initial steps there. Crystal, Grace, Michelle, do any of you have, if we're just going to talk about starting one of these, so you see the interface without looking at the tutorial I made, which would have the most value?
Kevin, I have to actually duck out here to go pick my daughter up from school, but any of the task that Michelle or Grace want, I'm interested in all of them. So I'm going to be going back to watch the end of the tutorial. But the one I'm most interested in is the video with the questions popping up if they don't have one that they want to choose.
Excellent, excellent. And I appreciate your framing it like that. And once again, within the H5P overview and demos section right here, we've got the tutorials for that. But also reach out to me, because the first 2 times you do it, it really is a little bit off-putting, and the third time it begins to make sense because it has a very specific fashion for doing that. Would anyone else? Is anyone else curious to sort of even see how to start one of these things, or do you have other questions?
I've got it.
Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
No, go for it, Grace.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I am definitely very interested in the video by Crystal.
Okay.
And I think I'm trying to think the other one that I think would be super relevant would be the drag and drop with using the images.
Right. Okay.
But I feel like a little more confident that I can figure that one out on my own.
Okay,
So
great.
video
Yeah, and like
top priority.
Yeah, and like I said, the tutorial that I put together today was pretty much for you guys, just for this question, the drop and drag. So what I'll show you right now is at least the beginning steps in just a couple of minutes of how really this is not, impossible. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to go ahead to my course here, and I'm going to say that I want to leave that, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I want to get right to the editing. I'm going to say add an activity. Oh, come on, don't stop me. It's mad because I left that without asking.
Hey, Kevin,
yes, please.
Kevin, before you get into the demo, Grace had asked a question in the chat earlier about accessibility, and I don't know the answer to it at all. Like, what are the challenges around accessibility for students using a reader for visually impaired?
Yeah, that's really tough. It is, because the fact is, there's some of these that are just not accessible. If you have visuals and then you have drop and drag to words, and that's your word pairing, that is a disqualifier for being truly accessible. And then some of this is just within a given field of study, and I'm not saying that's always the case. Within a given field of study, sometimes, especially like in EMR, which is what some of this was developed for, people who have certain disabilities are disqualified. So you've got to look at your audience, and then some of these can also be done as a word exercise or as a reading exercise as opposed to an interactive. So it's a great question, but some of these are necessarily not fully accessible. But we can talk about workarounds for giving them different things. The trouble is, it is qualitatively less of a learning device if you can't make that happen. So great question, and follow up on that too. Now I have just gone to the black version of that. I just want to show you a couple of steps here on when you get to the interactive video. So all I do is I come down here and I choose interactive video, and it's going to give me an interface that is unique to that task. And here's what that looks like. Now I'm going to come over here, and this is a video I want to use. I'm going to take the URL from a YouTube. So I'm going to hit share and copy that URL. And then I'm going to come back here and watch what I do. So I'm going to call this welding, and this will just I'll take 3 minutes to do this. I say I want to add a video. I paste it, insert it. Now, the tutorial has all these behavioral settings. You've got to go through and set them, and I can help you with that. But once you've done it one time, nothing else to learn. Look, now I've got add interactions. This is sort of cool. Now it got right to Matt, and it turns out I want at the end of and this is Matt. 16 minutes. I want there to be I move the scrubber to where I know that I'm going to ask a question here. And here are my things. Here's what I can do. You don't have to learn all these, but you see, I would like to have a multiple choice. I click it, and there it is. So I'll make this multiple choice. It's there. I have some others, how long it pauses for, and I have to go through a few series of settings, but it really lends itself to working. And then when you get into the LMS, once again, you have the assignments on the right. But that's all I'm going to cover on this right now. But the fact is, if I wanted to put in a question right there, and I wanted it to just stay up for that long and not any longer, then I would make it 0:15, 9.92, and then the question is this. This is the question. This is the question right here. And one of my options is this one. It's the correct answer. This is the incorrect answer. I hit. I want that. I want to save this. Now this is crucial. I got to go to save and display. And just with that much effort, right now I'm going to have a little pop-up on that video that will work. That has a not real question and 2 not real answers. For the record, when you save this, it's complicated for the LMS, and sometimes it'll take an inordinate amount of time to save. But just so you have a sense of how that's sort of doable, there it is. And then once this stops spinning, presumably, it will go to that question and it will pop up automatically. And then, we can do that. But that's what there is to that. But I don't want to, guys, keep you longer than we're going to. And I really appreciate you guys popping in here today. And are there other questions or other things that I can do that might help you or tell you where things are that I've already shown?
Hey, Kevin.
So that special recording room that you guys have, what do we have to sign up for? Who do we call if we want to come make a video in there?
Great question. And please spread the word around. It is right next to my office in Patton. I'm in 236. This is 238. And it's in live, was it 21 Live or Live 21? It's in the scheduling thing, and it comes to me. If you don't have access to that, you can just send me an email.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
But it's really nice. If you like bring in a PowerPoint, I can just put you in here with your PowerPoint, turn things on. You can use Camtasia and start and stop if you're familiar with it. If not, I can set it up so it's easy for you to do. And then you can either edit that down or I'll edit it down for you. And because it is what it is, we have soft lighting in here. We have the backlight. We have a decent microphone. We have a great little camera. So it really it makes everything that you're doing look as good as hopefully it should, because our professionals are terrific and some of their technology isn't. So yeah, you can reach out to me.
Thanks.
Sure.
That's awesome. I went ahead and got a YouTube video that we use and put it in. I was practicing within a course, and yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah, so this one here that I just put in, you can see, look at this. This is going to work right now. And the scrubber, I'm going to bring it up there, and this is already going to work. So those are pretty easy to do. All the behavioral settings and the other settings have to be right. But after you make one, you can save those settings and then just put in a new video and change the questions, and you don't have to do all the other resets at all. But you guys know how to reach me, and I would really love it if you did. And that's really what there is to that. And this, trust me, is going to work. But like I said, as slow as molasses in here today, because I'm streaming. Anyways, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, y'all, for coming.
Yeah,
Good to see you, Grace.
thanks, y'all. Kevin, Sarah, Jamie, Grace, Kevin, Sarah, Jamie, Grace.
Oh, and I'm right. It's the first time I was right.
Matthew
for the whole
Broom.
session.
Nice job.
Okay.
Nice job.
See this submit answer thing? That's new.
Oh.
And that's what's sending the grades correctly. Yeah. Anyways, well, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was great. All right, so